All right, hello everybody, and welcome to today's session, tapping into China's e-commerce ecosystem while protecting your IP. My name is Esther Cañada, and I am Advocacy Manager at the EU SME Centre. Now, this session is jointly organized with the IP SME Helpdesk, but here Lisa will introduce a bit more about this project. Both of us are EU-funded projects, by the way. I'm going to say first a few words about the EU SME Centre for those of you who are not familiar with us. So the EU SME Centre is an EU-funded project with quite a long history. It was initiated back in 2010, and it has undergone 4 phases. So we are currently in the 4th phase. Now, the goal of the EU SME Centre is to help European SMEs who are interested in doing business in China, with China, understand the country, the market, and yeah, basically the opportunities and the risks associated with it. The EU SME Centre, under its current phase, is implemented by a consortium of 4 main partners, 4 consortium partners, and 2 associated partners, some of them based in Europe, some of them based in China. Now, the reason why we're doing this event is that the EU SME Centre offers different channels of support for European small companies interested in doing business in China. And one of them, the one through which we are doing this event today, is advocacy. And in particular, the Intertuber SME working group, which brings together European SMEs, most of which are currently operating in China, and where we organize information sharing sessions, but also we are a bridge between small businesses and both the European and Chinese governments. So this is the short introduction of the EU SME Centre, and now we go into the main event. I'm very excited because we have 3 fantastic speakers that are going to discuss different aspects of China's e-commerce ecosystem. We have John Piao, who is the co-founder and head of e-commerce at The Giant Global, who is going to discuss e-commerce from the perspective of cross-border operations, really. Then we have Jenny Chan, who is co-founder and COO at Walk the Chat, who will discuss branding and marketing approaches that companies should take into account when organizing their e-commerce strategies. And finally, last but not least, we have Lisa Lu, who is IP Business Advisor at the IP SME Helpdesk, who will discuss the very important topic of preventing and addressing IP infringements in the e-commerce space. So without further ado, let's go into our first speaker, John. And let me just share. Okay, can you see? There we go. John?
Hi everyone, my name is John. So thank you very much for EU SME Centre to organize this seminar. So it's our honor to have this chance to briefly talk about and explain and share our experience and knowledge about cross-border e-commerce. I hope it's helpful, and I think we've also prepared a Q&A session. So if you have any question, can ask me at the Q&A session and or drop me an email afterwards. Okay, so let's start. So today I want to mainly talk about 3 questions. So first question is why and why we should consider cross-border e-commerce from as a European company or as a brand who wants to enter China or enter China's market. Secondly, how to open or start cross-border e-commerce. And the third question is what we should consider to manage cross-border e-commerce stores. So if you don't mind, I would very briefly introduce ourselves. So I'm representing a digital marketing and e-commerce agency based in China. So we have 2 offices, one in Shanghai, one in Beijing. So mostly we're supporting international brands to enter China. So we support brands to create social media accounts or also leverage search engines or any sort of the most digital media to achieve the goal of gaining brand awareness and gaining followers to achieve marketing or branding targets. And secondly, we also support brands and clients to enter online retail market in China. So more specifically, we support the clients to enter Tmall, KT, or any other sort of e-commerce platforms to sell the goods in Chinese market. Of course, we also support the clients with other activities such as influencer marketing or localization or any other activities. And of course, there are many things to consider, but I want to say this is something to be considered from any brand. So I'm sure most of you have a knowledge or experience or at least heard of different tools or platforms like Widget, Weibo, or Baidu, which is equivalent to Google, or Chinese version of TikTok, which is Douyin, or e-commerce places belong to Alibaba like Taobao, Tmall, or the second largest B2C platform like a JD. So what I'm trying to say is we have so many different platforms to utilize. So ultimately, those tools are platforms we have to consider. So for one goal, so which the one ultimate goal is that we want to connect the user journey, user experience. So this is we have to connect all the dots to make the branding and online retail and selling and also customer service to be all connected. So by doing this is we can slowly starting our business activities and gain the growth we wanted. So if you ask me what we do, then I can answer as our goal is that we want to connect the user journey in Chinese market. So the definition of the cross-border e-commerce. So mostly the selling entity is, of course, first of all, it's e-commerce. So the selling activity is happening online, and secondly, the selling entity is theoretically not in mainland China. So most of the case, we're experiencing the selling entity. The seller is business entity company registered in Europe or Singapore or even Hong Kong. So as long as the selling entity is not inside the mainland China, then secondly, the transaction, so like payment and all the fulfillment is happening from between the customer and the users in China, and the payment is made to outside of China. So usually in Tibor's case through Alipay Global, in JD's case case through JD payment. So we collect payment from the in US dollar or euro or different currency. We can collect to the entity in a bank account in Hong Kong or bank account in Europe. So the benefit is the entering Chinese market, the entering China, the speed efficiency is much faster or much more the best than the traditional way. So the first benefit is and usually if we want to follow the traditional way, then we as a European company or brand, we have to open the subsidiary, open the office in Beijing or Shanghai. So we use this as the sales office, plus also can be an importer to bring goods from Europe to China and start selling activity in China. Or through business network or through a trade fair, we find a local dealer from nationwide dealer, or we find one dealer in Beijing, one dealer in Shanghai. So this is the very typical traditional way of the starting selling activity. So cross-border e-commerce can give opportunity without setting up a company in China or without find a dealer in China, then you still can start selling to end customers in China. So through JD, through Tmall, or start with your own independent e-commerce platform, you still can sell to end customer in China. And second benefit is of the easier way to import. So I want to make an example with two cases. One case is a relatively easier or more common products, like bottled wine. So in general, like a bottled wine, it's much easier to import to compare other product, cosmetic or pet food. But still, we need to prepare the back label in Chinese, and also we need to follow these regulations by our local authorities. And you also need to register the manufacturer in GCC, the General China Custom. And also from exporter perspective, you also need to prepare different documents like hair certificates of origin. So those are minimum requirements. You can start exporting activity to China to make the sales. But if you offer goods in cross-border e-commerce, then you don't need to prepare hair certificate. You need to prepare certificate of origin. You also don't have to have this product label in Chinese to start selling activity. Although we need to do pre-registration of the product ingredients information and make this public online. But compare the procedure we have to follow for general trade importing, then the procedure still is way much simpler. And the second example I want to make is in certain products which require much more complicated registration. So for example, cosmetics or skincare items or hair supplements, which are require registration in China CFDA. So usually this registration only can take 6 to 24 months to finish, plus a lot of the pre-investment to finish registration to import to China. Plus, or the other example I can make is pet food. So pet food, you need to register the manufacturing GACC, plus each recipe, each article, each SKU you sell to China, you also have to register in Ministry of Agriculture in China. So those are quite difficult procedure, and as a European brand, you have to go through. So in general, cross-border e-commerce can make those importing and exporting procedure much more simpler, or you can skip a lot of the process to make it get it done in much faster way. And the third benefit, which as I explained earlier, so by selling through cross-border e-commerce channels, so you can receive money from your business entity set up in Europe or in Hong Kong. In US, you can settle in US dollar or Europe. So easier for financing And fourth is because you are involving in selling activity directly, so you have more chance to receive the feedback from end customers, or the search record or search dashboard analytics from your selling activities directly. So you can adapt, you can analyze, adapt China's market much faster and easily.
Yes.
To answer the question of how to start, I want to start with I want to break it down to a few steps. So first step I would like to suggest to consider is deciding business model. So here, although I have to say Chinese e-commerce market is very centralized, so centralized by the few top tier e-commerce platform. Of course, one of the representatives, the Timor, belong to Alibaba, but you still have a chance. You still have a chance to start your own e-commerce platform by localized website or a website you hosted in Europe, or you also can consider which a mini program. So you still can have a standalone e-commerce e-commerce store to start cross e-commerce. But in most case, as I said, the e-commerce market in China is very centralized. So starting your own store can be difficult because you need longer time to prepare. You need more preparation to connect and establish or connect all the facilities like payments, logistics, store design, or different elements, or even a working procedure to make it happen. So even entering marketplace is also quite expensive, but I think if you want to start faster and start with something more standard, then I think consider marketplaces as a good option. So we categorize marketplaces in two types, which I follow the suggestion from my colleague Andrea. So we can call the traditional or the e-commerce marketplace started much earlier. We categorize like Taobao, Tmall, JD. We categorize them as a platform or marketplaces where users go. Usually they have idea or mind. They have set mind of what they want to buy, but the other platforms, other tools originally started as a social sharing platform, but they're now in the last few years they're also developed to become more as an e-commerce platform. So or they are more developed much better to connect the social sharing and e-commerce. So they're also now they are turning to be an e-commerce platform. So the typical example is Red or AKA Xiaohongshu or Little Red Book, or video sharing tool like TikTok, Kuaishou. They're all becoming e-commerce platforms. However, from our experience, we would like to suggest to consider those marketplaces as a higher priority. So the first one is Timor Global flagship store for brand, or you can consider a special store for when I focus on one category, like I focus on skincare, or I focus on food, or I focus on different category or healthcare products. Then you also can consider specialist store. So same logic can go to the second largest B2C e-commerce platform, which is JD. So you also can consider to work with JD worldwide to have brand flagship store or a specialist store. Then Timor also trying to develop a light mode, because brand flagship store or special store actually require quite huge investments and quite bigger effort to start this. So Timor is trying to develop a new model called Impaijan in Chinese. So in theoretically, you can enter here not as a brand flagship store, but you still can enter Timor, and which much lower cost, like deposit or platform annual fee, and you still can have a chance to use the logistics facility from Alibaba, which is a Cainiao. So I think it also can be a good option for small to medium-sized companies. Then Douyin is very strong in video sharing and live streaming, connected video sharing and live streaming to e-commerce. So Douyin also has cross-border e-commerce business model. So you also, as a merchant, as a brand, you also can join and contact the Douyin to join. And Red also has a business model to support a merchant and brand to join for cross-border e-commerce. So in terms of logistics, I'm sorry, but it looks complicated, but actually it's not. It's a simple question. Basically, we need to think about which kind of which warehouse we want to utilize. So option one is we organize goods in bigger quantity and send to China, and usually we use a bonded warehouse in in Shanghai or Hangzhou or Canton and different area. So we ship from bonded warehouse in mainland China. So the benefit is if we calculate logistic costs for each item or each order, then it's going to be much lower. Plus the logistic efficiency is much better. So if a customer places an order, then we can guarantee to deliver the goods in 72 hours. However, the disadvantage is we have to organize goods in big quantities, so the pre-investment or risk from the brands can be much bigger. And the second option is both in Tmall JD case as a leading marketplace in China. So both of them, they have warehouse in Frankfurt. Of course, I think they also have some warehouses in the cities, but you also can use warehouse in Frankfurt to send the goods in small scale to Frankfurt, so you can ship directly from Europe to China. So in this case, your risk is lower, but you also have to understand logistic cost for each order will be increased to 10 to 20 euro per order, plus consumer need to wait 10 to 15 days to receive the order. So both models are both can be considered, but it both has very obvious and pro and cons. So because the time is very limited, I cannot cover every single detail, but in high level, to enter Tmall JD to open a franchise store. So though typically in our experience, it will takes up to 5 months to launch the store, because the store opening procedure will takes more or less 1 to 2 months, because a lot of the requirements and documents required by Tmall JD for European companies not to need some time to prepare, and also it's not only easy as I just get approved for store opening, because you also need to take care the payment opening, like Alipay Global in Tmall case. You also need to engage. You also need to decide which warehouse start to work with this warehouse to start warehouse entering procedure. So also you need to consider sea freight from Europe to China if you want to start utilize bonding warehouse mode to start your selling activity. Then you also need some time to localize content and prepare infographic for online store operation. So in our experience, it will take 4 to 5 months or up to 5 months to launch the store. One of the most frequent questions I receive is the budget or investment to start cross-border e-commerce. So I can't answer this question because I need all of the pre-input from brand, because the business model, which platform, how many SKUs, what is the logic mode. But I try to answer with some basic items I can answer immediately. So at least I want to give some cost structure you have to consider in at the beginning. So to enter platform, enter marketplaces, so the first cost is the deposit. So JD case, they ask for $10 and plus $1 to utilize their warehouse. In Timor's case, they ask 50,000 to 150,000 CNY per deposit. A different platform also has annual platform fee. Then from each service order you make, then they will charge platform commission. Then also an optional, you can choose to use different software tools provided by platforms. Then second cost you have to consider is some content development. So you need to develop or localize content for branding story and e-commerce activities, for social media marketing, for further marketing activities with influencers. You have to consider the cost for content development. Then store operation, you need to have a team to manage, no matter it's in-house or you outsource or you work with a TP. You need to consider your cost of the product, the product value. Then internal logistics, if you organize a bigger quantity to both the warehouse in China, or no matter you direct ship or you ship from both the warehouse in China, you also the cost of the order fulfillment. Then the custom tax for each single order. So those are the typical operation costs you have to consider from cost structure. Then the last but not the least item is the marketing cost. So marketing cost is, as you can imagine, so different marketing activities you carry out to gaining followers, gaining traffic, also gaining new users, new customers, and you also need to have a strategy and the execution plan to maintain and then our upsells to your current customers. So you need to plan and reserve a certain marketing budget. So regarding questions how to manage, I want to consider 4 basic elements. So we need to have content. We need to have very well prepared content in Chinese to be utilized in different media, offline media or digital media or different format of medias. Then digital marketing here, I'm not only talking about the social media marketing, so you can be used as your communication pipeline to communicate your brand value or product value, but you also need to think about how you can build your brand reputation. So in this case, you also have to utilize other medias like a Zhihu or different Q&A platforms in China to build your word of mouth or brand reputations, and which I'm sure all of you heard more than 100 times. So you can choose different KOLs and KOC can fit your brand positioning, plus can reach the target audience you want to reach. Then promotion campaign, which is typical. So like every single store, no matter in Europe and China, you have to have marketing plan. You have to have promotion calendar and activities to carry out. And store management, it's all about the basics. You need to have a solid plan to manage your supply chain. You need to have a solid plan to ensure all the fulfillment can be done in 74 hours or maximum 96, maximum up to 4 hours if you use Bolivar's in China. If you have, then you must make sure it's no longer than 10 or 12 days, because Chinese consumers, they are very spoiled. They don't like to wait for more than 1 week. So you have to find a way. Also, you need to work hard to improve your working procedure to improve your logic efficiency. Then other basic but very important items are how to measure content, your pricing, how to smartly manage your pricing tag to give the consumer the feeling of you are giving them the best deals. and how you design your customer service SOP to make sure you are keeping them your customer service team to give enough support of the pre-service inquiries to the customers. Also, how they are managing the procedure design to make a quick decision of in which case they can return, in which case they cannot return. So those are basic elements, but very important to make the store run properly. So in next slides, I only made some examples to give you some more direct feeling of what you need to prepare. So on the left side, I prepared typical homepage of Tmall store. So you need to design, you need to have different very well prepared infographic for start store design. Also for product detail page. In general, one of the most case we receive from European brands, because in Chinese e-commerce market, actually we use much more infographic than compared to Amazon UK or Amazon.de, Amazon.it, because Chinese consumers they are very used to have this type of very long infographic to explain brand story, brand history, product features, also the ingredients, also the guide on how to use it. So actually the workload of preparing high quality content is much bigger than you expected. So I suggest the brands to be patient, take time to prepare those contents one by one, and be ready for e-commerce platforms requirements. Here's this slide. I just want to make an example of the different procedure you need to build for e-commerce store operations. Of course, you also can get support from experienced TP. However, one thing you have to remember is for cross-border e-commerce, once the sale is made from bonding warehouse to end customer, or from warehouse and from Europe to direct ship to end customer, if there's a case of end customer wants to return these products and you agree to return, then those goods cannot return back to bonding warehouse, cannot return to Europe. So you have to find a solution to have a warehouse in mainland China to receive those goods from end customers. So those are one of the typical preparation you have to consider and prepare for a smooth customer service operations. And in next speaker, Jenny from Chat will talk more about the market. So I will not talk too much about today. But you can consider two areas I would like you to consider. So one is one of the benefits you are entering e-commerce platforms is there's a lot of tools you can utilize in e-commerce marketplaces for marketing. So you have banner marketing, you have keywords. Also, they have very mature tool you can use for affiliate marketing, kind of from a blogger. You can use them to drive traffic. Of course, you need to sacrifice your margins, but those are tools you can utilize to bring sales and traffic to your stores. And beside product seeding, one thing relevant to product seeding, one thing very relevant, very important from our perspective, our experience is you need to work very hard to build nice reviews to your store, to your products. Also, you can encourage your customers to share their shopping experience or make the post inside of these marketplaces. Those are very important for you to build your credit, build the trust for a store, because those are very fundamentals. I mean, I suggest you to invest more time and effort in build those store trust and reviews before you start investing in marketing the activities to drive traffic, because otherwise your conversion rate or return investment cannot be high, or it will be much lower than you expected. On the left side is which I just explained. So it's very important to build and gain nice user reviews and their sharings inside of the marketplaces, because those can play a very key role to new traffic or new users trying to visit your store. So those can improve your conversion rate or return investment in terms of your investment in marketing. Then proceeding, like as you know very well, you can utilize short video, you can short videos or post the images and texts on Xiaohongshu or on Douyin or different social medias to hire those influencers and KOCs to recommend your products. And live streaming, as you know very well. So it's important to have KOL. It's important to organize a live streaming, but before you start KOL live streaming, you need to improve your store basics of the content and the design and pricing and user reviews. Then I think you can plan and start live streaming. Thank you very much for listening. Then I will pass to Esther and Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I already have a lot of questions for you, but these will have to wait for the Q&A session. But for our audience, if you already have questions for John, feel free to send them through the chat, and we will raise them during the discussion and Q&A session. But before that, we have two more speakers, and our next speaker is going to be Jenny. Just a minute. And feel free to start talking while I figure.
Hello. Can everyone hear me? While we put up a slide, do we know the industry in the audience? Like which industries is everyone from?
We have a wide variety of industries and sectors. Also, we have companies that are already in China and some companies that are based in Europe with an interest in joining the Chinese market.
Okay.
I am very sorry, my computer is not cooperating, so yeah. Maybe you can
join the meeting and share the slides.
Yes, that would possibly work. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Apologies, everybody. Just a minute.
Mostly be okay. Yeah. All right. So I will go over like the e-commerce overview, and then mostly focus on Little Red Book, Douyin, and then talk a little bit about AI marketing, the rising trend. So first is the overview. So this is the Tmall sales after COVID. Compare this year to last year. and in almost all the industries, it has dropped quite a lot, 6% in total. And the Tmall in general just got a lot of challenge from other cheaper or new emerging channels such as Douyin and Pinduoduo, which is like a cheaper version of e-commerce platform. And this is a Douyin sales for different industries. And this is a very different picture because as you can see after COVID, even though the economy hasn't returned to its best, but the Douyin sales has increased 40%. So this is increasing tremendously. This is definitely the platform other than Tmall that we can watch out for. And today, because our audience is mostly SMEs, so in terms of thinking about the e-commerce channel, especially thinking about market entry, those are the 5 channels usually we would consider. In terms of which channels to pick, it very much depends on what kind of sales expectations and what kind of investment companies could consider to invest. And the reason I asked for industry is because right now this data I put here is for fashion brand, and assuming it's a brand that hasn't got any market traction before entering China. If you are in a different industry, it will be a different stats, but the cost will likely be similar. So if we look at WeChat, this is like one of the lowest investment channel if you want to create a WeChat cross-border store. But then in terms of sales expectation, it's also the lowest because the traffic on WeChat is just super expensive now to acquire new users. And then Little Red Book is, yeah, I will send, I think we'll send the presentation afterwards. For Little Red Book, the cost is similar to WeChat, but because it's an algorithm-driven platform, so it's much easier to get tractions and even sales from Little Red Book as a new company going from 0 to 1. And then we have Douyin. It's actually very expensive to operate. And also brands should be investing somewhere between 30% to 50% of their total sales in marketing. And I put a very rough estimate in terms of sales expectation for the first year. We will focus on Douyin as well today because it's such a rising platform. And for Tmall, this is still the largest channel, and it's very high investment, high return, and then it's relatively safe channel to invest in if you got this much of sales expectation and investment. So it's still the biggest channel that you want to think about for setting up a cross-border store, unless if the investment amount is below that, then you can consider other channels. And JD is just a smaller version of Tmall, so moderate investment and moderate return, except for electronic like industry or some of the male dominant product category. This is relatively strong. So the first channel I will deep dive is Little Red Book. So Little Red Book is it's a social media channel, and it covers a lot of industries. So from cosmetics, fashion to sports, and it has been growing over the past years. And for its e-commerce capabilities, the Little Red Book has been pushing for that for maybe over the past 3 years. And it's not until recent years that it's really got more traction. it has 200 million monthly active user, so relatively kind of a smaller channel compared to WeChat and compared to Douyin, but the difference is it has a lot of overseas brands. So around 27% of brands are like overseas. So it's the users on Little Rebel is like they're from top tier cities and they are interested in finding out about overseas products and the brand reviews. In terms of like, so you can find out like how popular is your brand by just typing in the brand name on Little Red Book, and it will tell you like how many brand mentions you already have. So for example, if you have less than 100 brand and mentions, so this is very low in terms of like the brand awareness. But for this stage, I guess for most of the brands that we work with, they actually start from this stage. And in this stage, it's very important to increase the amount of social mentioning on Little Red Book. And you can do so by working with influencers and gifting your product to KOLs. And this is almost kind of the cheapest and the most effective way to get a lot more mentions. And in the meanwhile, while you're gifting your product to influencers, they can also give you a lot of information. It's almost like a market study feedback. So they can tell you what type of products they like the best, which colors they like the best. So for fashion industry, color is super important. The size of the products they like, the flavors. So this is directly market feedback from influencers. On top of that, they can also share your user-generated content on Little Red Book, which is very good for the brand. And depending on the cost of your product, you can decide like how many gifts you want to give out to the influencer. We've done usually for brands, like we've done from 10 products to 150 products gifting per month. And some of the brands that we work with, like because their product is super expensive. So for example, gold necklace, they develop a seeding specific product just for gifting. So instead of gifting out the real product, they gift out like a gold-plated product, which looks exactly the same, but it's cheaper to gift out and it doesn't impact the picture quality. And all the influencer does is they take pictures and share on social media, which is a very smart strategy for influencer gifting. And they gift out like over 200 pieces of jewelry per month, which they will not be able to do if they're gifting out like the real product, which is made of gold. And then for a bit, once you establish brand awareness, like in over 100 mention to 1,000, this is where you really want to build your hero product. And by hero product, I mean a very best-selling piece of product that usually could on like a Chinese e-commerce platform, it could be around 30% to 50% of your total like a sales volume could be coming from this one single product. And it's super important because all the platforms, e-commerce or social is algorithm driven, and you want to have this traffic driving product that you just be known for in the market. And so the customers can remember the product and they can, there's almost a very like a strong effect to buy what's popular, which is a bit different from Western e-commerce platform. And then when it becomes like more than 1,000 nodes, this is where it becomes a lot more complicated. You want to do like a dynamic marketing and along together with like a celebrity seating. So like gifting to celebrities when they attend red carpet walk or when they arrive at airport, like this is where the paparazzi shoots a picture and then they can share the photos on social media, tagging the brand. So this is also a typical like celebrity marketing that brands could do when they become bigger. There's also others like live streaming, display ads, so a bunch of others. Things to do on Little Red Book. For Little Red Book store, so this is where you can access it. When you go to a brand page and then there's a store link where you can directly purchase the product within the app. And this could be cross-border store. It could also be like a local store with a Chinese entity. They support both. Actually, the most popular way people make a purchase is actually via Little Red Book live streaming. And this is where influencer would introduce brand and people can buy. Usually it comes with a limited time discount and people can make a purchase, impulse purchase. Here is an example of this is an Australian designer clothing brand, and before they open the Little Red Book store, they only have like a 400 Little Red Book mention, and this is after like a 1 year of continuous product seeding that we got to 400 mentions. Before that, they had like absolutely no mentions in the Chinese social media, and the first month that we launched the store, they got over 400K RMB of sales. This is 10 times higher than like the sales on their WeChat store, which has been operating for almost maybe 10 months. So still market entry phase though. And most of the sales are coming from live streaming. So the sales commission paid to influencers is around 20 to 30%. And the product itself, like it's like a 1,000 RMB like a dress in clothing. So comparatively, it's a premium brand in price, and sorry. Coming back. Okay, I'm back. So it's kind of a very good result for a product that is premium in terms of like a brand positioning. And because so there is 50% refund rate, which is super high, but it's something that you do want to prepare yourself because this is impulse purchase from live streaming. Usually customers only saw the product for like 10 minutes and then they decide to buy. Another reason is because the size. It's a European, it's an Australian brand, so the size, the length of the dress is actually one of the large issue. If the brand average cost is a bit lower, so for this brand, it's a Korean street style brand, and the average price is around 400 RMB. This brand already have a bit of brand awareness before we launch campaigns. So the result is also better compared to others. And on average, like in general, and I think this is last year during Double 11, the ROI is around 500%. So the best campaigns, it could go all the way to like 1000% ROI, and some of the like below average campaign could be around 200% ROI. Even so, Little Red Book has its own like a store, like a ecosystem within the app itself. But for most of the brands, the sales still goes to Tmall because this is still the dominant channel in China. And the Chinese app, like from Little Red Book to Tmall, the tracking system is non-existent. So it's very, very difficult to check what is the exact sales impact from a Little Red Book campaign to Tmall sales. So the way that we do it is it takes a lot of manual work. So we measure the Little Red Book impression engagement, and then we go to Tmall and check like the search volume of certain keyword that's mentioned on social media. Or another way to do it is by having special coupon, and then this one you can really check exactly how much sales is coming from which channel. But usually like a brand, like a consumers, they also like just exit Little Red Book and go to Tmall. So if you want to really operate and use Little Red Book as just part of your overall social media strategy, make sure to really check the performance between the apps so that like you can see which influencers perform the best. And this is very important because for the influencer gifting and influencer campaign strategy, usually we work with certain influencer multiple times. And then it's important to only pick the ones that can actually drive sales result to work with them repeated times. So in conclusion, for Little Red Book, it is increasingly performing better in terms of the Little Red Book store. However, for mainstream brand, is still in terms of the sales value compared to Tmall, it's still very small. But for SMEs, you can consider this as a market entry channel. For majority of the brands, they still use it as a marketing channel, and it's hard to check the conversion from Little Red Book to Tmall, but definitely try to check that. I forgot to mention, like for this one, so this is like the correlation between Little Red Book performance and the Tmall search sales performance. And sometimes you can see when you're lucky or when the influencer really performs well, you can see a very strong correlation, but it's not always the case. For Douyin, so this is the most popular short video platform in China. It's very similar to TikTok, and it has a lot of live streaming components. And it also has its own e-commerce ecosystem. And because it's growing so fast, you can consider it as almost addition to Tmall in terms of like the importance in e-commerce. It has 600 million daily active user, and the user spends a lot of time on these channels, like 1.5 hours, and it has been growing quite fast in terms of like the e-commerce channel. And it's a closed ecosystem. Like most of the sales would happen from a live streaming room, and then you can have a limited time discount where you can make a direct purchase, all within Douyin. And this is compared to Little Red Book, the e-commerce, the ecosystem is a lot closer and it's a lot more mature in terms of the e-commerce like environment, where in Little Red Book, usually user would use it as a product recommendation app, and then they will close the app and then go to Tmall to make a purchase. but on Douyin, actually, that's not the user behavior. User would directly make a purchase within Douyin because it's already quite mature. For the fashion industry, and this is the sales volume, like between Tmall and Douyin, and it's catching up quite a lot. The trend is during the biggest e-commerce holidays, Tmall is still the dominating platform, but during the day-to-day, like Douyin, there's a strong trend of it catching up. Also, in terms of, it's not a platform just for cheap product anymore. The average product sold on Douyin has been rising quite a lot. And by last year, already 27% of the sales is actually contribute from products that's over 1,000 RMB. And this has changed tremendously over the past years, because back in just 3 years ago, only 1% of sales is coming from product over 1,000 RMB. So the product that's being sold, users are becoming more and more comfortable making a higher e-commerce purchase on this channel. For the industries, it has becoming more diverse over the year. Food and beverage and the beauty and the skincare are still the largest category, but they have been diluted compared to the previous years. It's just becoming a more mature marketplace for all the industries. This is an example of a brand, like a startup brand that get popular in Douyin. So this is like a spicy tofu snack. And every package is one tofu snack. And it's very cheap. For 50 of those snacks, it's only 10 RMB. And but it only launched in Douyin for just last 8 months. And in April, it already hit over 200 million RMB of sales. So it's just tremendous growth over just very, very short period of time. And it's this kind of brand that actually they never had a brand name before Douyin, and they don't even have a Tmall store. And they actually, if you look at the brand's official account on Douyin, it only have 2 videos. So that's not where users buy it. It leveraged Douyin as kind of a revenue sharing marketplace. And a lot of influencers, they would put their product, link it with their video, and then they would sell it to their followers in order to get, for this one, it's 15% of commission by selling 10 RMB of a 50 package of tofu snacks. So a typical brand that got really, really popular on Douyin is just very low in terms of price positioning, and you don't have to have any brand awareness. That being said, Douyin is also a platform that has a very strong concentration in terms of the sales volume on the top brands, the top 500 brands. So first, half of the sales is coming from brands' official live streaming. And this is the live streaming the brand account would host it. And if you look at the right graph, so this is how much in terms of the follower on Douyin compared to the sales that they are making. And it's extremely concentrated on the top brands, such as Xiaomi and Adidas. For smaller brands, even though they already have over 100,000 followers, the sales is still very let's say it's very hard to get sales at the smaller brands. It's very expensive to operate on Douyin. So on average, brand posts a lot. So on a monthly, like this is a graph of like how frequently brand would post video content on their account. And a lot of them, they would post over like 20 videos per month. So that itself is a lot of operating costs. And on top of that, the official live streaming, like usually brand would host over 10 hours of daily live streaming. This is super expensive to operate. You need a whole operation team to produce the content, do promotion, ads, technical support. And on top of that, you need to have a good supply chain system. So short enough production cycle, deep inventory, able to deal with excess inventory when things doesn't go well. All of those could be very hard for SMEs to handle, like in the beginning. The suggestion I would give is instead of thinking about hosting your own live streaming, at least from the beginning, test it with Douyin influencers to start with live streaming and to see, like work with them on a commission base to see if your product has a good market fit. And then if it does, then invest more in building a team. Otherwise, it could be risky, even though it's a platform that might have a high return. So in conclusion, for Douyin commerce, it's booming. Definitely is a platform to watch out for. If you already have a very successful Tmall store, it's definitely a channel to consider as an additional channel on top of that to expand your like a sales reach. For SMEs in beauty, F&B and clothing category, if your product is below 500 RMB, you can maybe give it a try. But if it's above that, then you need to have enough investment, and prepare for taking the risk when entering this channel for e-commerce. And lastly, I want to go over AI marketing, and this is super relevant for SMEs because it's a way to make marketing more efficient. So this is NetEase. They have a marketplace, and this is a liquid perfume products they have. And the product that they you can create like a product image with AI image generator and use it for e-commerce. The way you can do it is, this is an example of how you can take a product and create a marketing poster or e-commerce poster. And it's actually creating this poster, it took us maybe a bit less than 1 hour to do without any photo shooting or any models. So first you can ask, like there's many image generation tools such as Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, and they can generate a very good like image, but usually the product will be distorted. But then they are very good for like a brainstorming, and it's very good for like a product composition. So for example, the color match is great, and then the composition is great. So it's good enough as a start. And then with just a bit of like a Photoshop, so maybe 15 minutes of Photoshop, the real product into it, then you got kind of the idea of where you want the poster to be. Although it's still lack of like lighting, and then some of the element is off, like we have the chicken nugget on the front, which is a bit weird. But then you can put it into a model, like we have specific model for handbag brand. And for this, it will add additional lighting so that the product will blend in to the background very nicely. And also you can change the chicken nugget to imagine it as cookies, which could be more consistent with this poster image. And we didn't use the previous one. It's hard to use because it's a luxury brand. We just use it for workshop purpose. But on a day-to-day basis, we are already using this technology to create like different kind of images for our brand, from handbag to watch to pet food brands. And it could save tremendous amount of investment. So for example, for the pet food brand, every year they have to fly to Africa to take live photos of cats on their natural habitat. But with this like AI like an image, we can actually create this Kenny's a cat, and we can have her very consistently on a lot of different images, posing with product very cheaply and efficient. Other than image generation, AI can be used for like sentiment analysis, or so this is a small report example that we can produce for brand. It's an internal tool that we built. It's called Doris, and what it does is it can take the available data on social media, and it can generate analysis based on like large amount of data. So this is a simple example. It does like a sentiment analysis on 200 Little Red Book posts, and it will share like with a brand, like what are consumers saying. It can also be used for analyzing keyword, competitor analysis, e-commerce trend, and others. So very effective. And remember about the live streaming that brands had to do for over 10 hours. There are like live streaming AI technology that's available for relatively affordable price. Although it's not that like mature yet. So I checked the major brand, like no one uses AI for their like live streaming on Douyin sales, but it's definitely evolving very fast. And I think very soon we should be able to have that like a cheaper way to operate like a Douyin store with AI technologies. So in conclusion, it's impacting e-commerce and social media quite a lot in China, and the SMEs should definitely leverage those tools to improve the efficiency of operation and reduce the cost. And so that's it. So the conclusion is Little Red Book is a good channel to think about market entry for SMEs. And it's always a good channel for branding and marketing. For Douyin, if it's for SMEs, it could be too expensive to operate, but it depends on the industry. And AI marketing is something that brands should definitely watch out for, to how to think about like leveraging the capabilities to improve the quality and efficiency of your marketing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And now we go on to our last speaker, which is Lisa. Just give me a minute. But feel free to do so.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you all for joining us, joining this event. I'm Lisa. I'm from China IP SME Helpdesk. This is a project funded by European Union. And as of today, we already assist. Oh, here we are. As of today, we already assist more than 100,000 European SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. And we provide IP strategy related advice, and it's all free of charge. Next slide, please. And you can always find out, you can always contact us via email or our helpline, and I will reply to you within 3 working days. And except for providing training and webinar like we are now, we also provide one-on-one session, and you can also download the self-learning materials from our website, like this slide, as we can see, and it's all free of charge. So before going to today's topic, I would love to invite you to participate in a quiz. So by doing this quiz, I can see what kind of IP knowledge you already have, and I can focus on more of the specific topic. And this is anonymous quiz, so no personal information will be collected. All I can see is how many answers showed in this quiz. So either you can take out your phone, scan this QR code, or you can input menti.com into the browser, and Menti, MENTI.com, and input this voting code. If you already finished the first question, please wait, and we will move to another question for a bit. And now we can stop sharing. So the first question is, which intellectual property right can be registered in China only through the national route, other than the international route? We already see 4 people voting. Oh, 5. Please have more voting, and it's anonymous. No data will be collected. All you can do is helping me to see the audience knowledge of IP, intellectual property right. Okay. Okay, now there are 8 people. Okay. Oh, by the way, we will have the quiz after the training. So in this first quiz, I'm not going to tell you the right answer. You have to find out during the training. But you will have the same quiz afterwards, so you can see what is the important message. And if you already learned from this presentation I will give today. So yeah, let's move to the second one. Second question, should you notarize the infringing link to preserve the evidence before deciding to remove the link of counterfeit product from the e-commerce platform? Okay. You can choose yes or no. It will take extra time and delay the removal process. Or taking picture or screenshots will suffice. Okay. Please join the voting. Okay. Let's move on to the next. The last question. If you find that others are selling your authentic products, but without your authorization, can you start the notice and take down procedure? Yes, you can start. Or you will need to contact the platforms first for their clarification. Or it's not an infringement, so no action can be taken online or offline. Okay, many people vote the second one. Okay. Okay, thank you for participating in the quiz. Now we are moving to the training and the real contents now. So today I'm going to discuss how to prevent and address cases of intellectual property infringement in e-commerce platforms. And as mentioned by John and Jenny, e-platform is a very popular place for foreign companies trying to marketing and selling products in China. And the first, I'm going to introduce intellectual property principle in China. The second, I will introduce main types of the IP intellectual property right you should consider more to protect on e-commerce platforms, even before you decide to go into Chinese markets. And thirdly, I will discuss how to conduct e-commerce platforms surveillance with you. And lastly, we will see what kind of enforcement actions we can take after we identify infringement in the platforms. So first, let's see what is the must-know intellectual property principle in China. First, to file is a very important principle. Means if you are not the first to file the intellectual property process or applications and get the right register in China, someone else may file it. A very common case is someone else may register a bad faith entity may file your trademarks in China first, then open a Tmall shop. Because they have the trademarks before you, they can claim they are the trademark owners. Well, if you collect enough information and evidence, you of course can close down the shop, but it will be very time and cost consuming. So file your trademarks and file your intellectual property rights, especially trademark and patent, as soon as possible, and be the first one to register in China. And second principle is, even though you already have, for instance, trademarks or patent in European Union or any countries there, it doesn't mean you already have protection in China. You still need to go through an additional procedure to get the IP protect in China. And the last principle is registration. That means in e-commerce platforms, without the Chinese registration certificate, it might be very tricky to enforce your right. It's still possible, but you need to upload and collect more evidence and more files to enforce your right. So without the registration, the protection of your intellectual property rights will be lower than the registration. Those are the three important principles you need to know about intellectual property right in China. And let's move on to what type of intellectual property right you should pay more attention about e-commerce platforms. First, it's the most common one, trademark. You can register your brand name, logo, and trade name as trademarks. And before you decided to file a trademark application, it's always necessary to run a clearance search. In this way, you can see if there's already prior similar marks in the markets, or if your trademark is registrable in China. If not, revise your trademarks before coming to Chinese markets. And there are two registration systems in China for you to get your trademark registered. The first one is national. It's national system, meaning you have to hire a trademarks attorney or trademark lawyer who practice in China to file to China Trademark Office, which is China National Intellectual Property Administration. This is the Chinese system. The second system is international system, which means you can only file one application, and then you can get protection in different jurisdictions. This system we call the Madrid system. But when you file the international trademark application, make sure you select China as a designated contracting party. Otherwise, the protection will not be granted in China. And another very important issue is about Chinese trademarks. Because you are coming to Chinese markets, it's easier for Chinese consumer to remember if your brand name is Chinese. And when if you don't register the Chinese trademarks or come out with a Chinese trademark name, it will be someone else may come up with you. Usually it's the markets, and it will be very difficult to control these trademarks. And even worse, someone else may preempt the trademarks registration, and you need to spend extra money to trace it back. When you select the Chinese trademarks, you can select the Chinese character reflect similar pronunciation or similar meaning of your original mark. And the next intellectual property right is copyright. Copyright is different from trademarks because you can only register it via the national route. And you can protect your logo or packagings like food packagings and your promotional materials via copyright protection. Although it's an unregistered right, we still recommend you to register it in China because, as we mentioned, registration is a very important intellectual property principle. With the registration certificate, it will be so much easier for you to enforce your rights, especially in e-commerce platforms. And it's very fast and easy to register. Usually only takes 1 month for you to get the certificate. And you can do it by yourself without lawyers' help in China. And the next intellectual property is patent. In China, different from European Union, different from EU. In China, there are 3 types of patent: design, invention, and utility model. Design is also protected under the patent system in China. And also, design patent is the most common patent that's face the infringement situation in e-commerce platform. So you can protect the appearance of your products under the design patent, like the shape, pattern, or color of your products. And similar with trademarks, it can also protect it by 2 different systems: national way and international way. And for the for invention and utility model, you can also protect it by 2 different systems: national and international. So in conclusion, except for copyright, you can protect the other intellectual property via national and international rules. And after you get your intellectual property rights registered in China, now it's time to search any possible infringement in the e-commerce platforms. So many companies actually don't know that the e-commerce platforms provide very proactive measures to fight against the counterfeit, the infringement. For instance, they have a blacklist of counterfeit sellers who already got reported before. And also some platforms, they provide notarization purchase, which means after they find out the high-risk products, they will conduct the notarization purchase, and the cost will be paid by the platform. And then they will send the result and report to you, which is the intellectual property rights owner. So make sure you communicate with the e-commerce platform very well. Make sure they know your brand very well. Otherwise, they cannot take proactive measures to protect your brand. And where to search this infringement? It's from e-commerce platforms, of course, such as the traditional online malls like Tmall, Alibaba, and Jingdong, or Pinduoduo, or social media platforms like Douyin, TikTok, WeChat, or search engine, like in China, it's Baidu. You can also try Google. Sometimes it can also show some results, and Bing, of course. And when you search that, there are many keywords you can select. I just list the most common one, and you can always come out with more keywords. For instance, like trademark name and your Chinese trademark name, the logo name, your product name like wine, or your product name plus the home country, like Italy, wine, and infringers name, of course. And if you monitor some infringement mark, not from the e-commerce platform, but from like trademark monitor system or service, you can also input infringing marks plus the infringer's company name on it. It will show exactly the same the shop owned by the infringers. And nowadays, a lot of e-commerce platforms, they provide this image search. Basically, you use your phone to scan the products, your products, and it will show a lot of similar products. Or you can just search by the image of your products. It will be it's really convenient. And after the search, there are a lot of listings. How do you identify the potential infringement? There are many clues. I only list the most common one. Low price products usually are very suspicious. or if you found one vendor selling a large amount of listings, or in some product introduction, they claim the products are from abroad, but they do not illustrating which foreign company is it from, or some products missing a few design details. It's also very suspicious. And you may want to pay more attention to the sellers that are not your official distributor. And there's a little bit tricky one, which is also in our quiz, that is if someone sell your authentic products, but you did not give your authorization. In this situation, because there are many possibilities, so we always encourage you to check with the platform first. For instance, if the sellers only sell 1 or 2 items and it's authentic, it might be second-hand products, or they simply just resell the original products. Then it might not be infringement and you cannot take actions. But some situation, which is more common, is the seller. You already identify in previous case and you already sue them or you already take actions. You have this judgment or official decisions telling that the seller is a bad faith seller. Then you can ask the platform if this official judgment or decision can help you to take down this, to proceed for the next move. And after you identify the infringement, what options do you have? There are many options, but before you taking any actions, make sure you collect and preserve the evidence, because this step is really important. Sometimes the evidence you collect, the forms, the quality, the quantity will decide the results of whatever actions you are going to take. And when you preserve the evidence, you can choose to notarize by asking the notary office to do it for you, or you can also use the blockchain on your own to preserve the evidence. After you finish the evidence collection, now you can see there are at least 5 actions you can take. The most special actions you can take is notice and take down procedure, which is between you and the e-platform and the e-commerce platforms. And the rest is like general enforcement actions, such as you can send a notifications letter to the sellers, or more seriously, you can send cease and desist letter to them to ask them to stop selling it. Or you can inform the administration of market regulation, take rate action to seize the products. And the last resource is litigation. We all know litigation is very cost and time consuming. However, if there's online intellectual property disputes, you can always consider internet courts, which is more convenient, cheaper, and faster. And next, I'm going to focus on notice and takedown procedure. So this procedure, as I mentioned, this is provided by the platforms. So even before you identify the infringement, we encourage you to register accounts in the platforms by uploading business information. If you are individual, you can also upload by your passport, and also upload your intellectual property rights certificate, which we already emphasized many times. It's really important for the next enforcement. And after you identify the infringement and finish the evidence collection, you can file the notice with the evidence. I will talk more about what kind of evidence you can file. And when the platform receives your notice, they will review your notice and claim. Usually, for instance, like trademarks complaint, they will review if the trademarks, the goods of the infringement goods, is it including in your trademark certificate. For instance, if your trademark certificate shows you have rights on clothes, but the alleged infringement is pet food, then it's not matched. They cannot remove the link. If they, after the review, they think it is infringement, they will remove the link immediately, usually within 3 to 7 working days. Meanwhile, they will inform the sellers, the vendor. And in this situation, the vendor, they have the chance to send a counter notice to you with a non-infringement statement. And this statement will be delivered to you by the platforms. When you receive this notice, what you can do is either filing further complaint, not with the e-commerce platform, but with the administrative official, or you can choose to file a lawsuit. However, whatever options you choose, you should notice the e-commerce platforms that you already take actions with other officials. And if you do not inform them within 15 days, the platforms will bring back the link to the platforms. And the advantage of this notice and takedown procedure is you can remove the link and no fees will be charged, and it's very fast. You can do it on your own or by any employees in your company without a lawyer or agent assistant. The required documents of the procedure, the first three, many of them we already mentioned. I will talk more about what kind of evidence you should upload. The first is the exact hyperlink to the alleged infringing listings. If the hyperlinks is not clickable, maybe your files, your notice will be refused because the infringement is not existing anymore. In this case, the collection and preservation of evidence is really important because if you cannot click the link, you still have the other evidence to show they have infringement previously. And you have also upload some basic of the complaint. For instance, like the grounds, why do you think it's infringement? And what type of trademarks or copyright or patents they infringe? And for easier examination of the platforms, it's also advisable that you make this comparison between the authentic products and fake products. So in conclusion, I will leave some takeaway messages to you. First, register your intellectual property rights beforehand and have the registration certificates ready for the enforcement, even though maybe now you do not find any infringement. And second, monitor the e-commerce platforms regularly. Familiar yourself with the notice and takedown system in different platforms. Different platforms have very slightly different rules. Also, proactively communicate with the e-commerce platforms and collect and preserve the evidence before taking any enforcement actions, including the notice and takedown actions. So, and for any question, you can always write to us via emails. So now, let's go for the post-training quiz. This is exactly the same question. Again, it's anonymous, and no personal information will be collected. You can either scan the code, or input menti.com and input the code to your browser. So I'm sure you're already very familiar with those questions. The first one is which IP right can be registered in China only through the national routes other than the international routes. We can see 3 people already vote. We need more votes. Yes. More people, please. Good, good. Great, we can see people vote correct answer this time. Very happy to see that. More correct answer. And next question, should you notarize the infringing link to preserve the evidence before deciding to remove the link of counterfeit products from the platform, which is the notice and takedown procedure we already mentioned. Okay, 5 people voting now. Please vote. Is it yes or no? It will just take extra time and delay the removal process. Or you can just take picture or screenshots without notarizing. Okay, this time we can see 5 people vote. Okay, 6 now. It's all correct answer. And let's move to the last question. If you find that the other are selling your authentic products without your authorization, can you start the notice and take down procedure? You can start, or you need to contact the platform first, or it's not an infringement, you cannot take any actions. Okay, 5 people vote so far. There's still 1 people. Okay, keep going. So the correct answer is the second one. You will need to contact the platform first for clarification. Yes, it's a tricky situation because this kind of sales could be in many possibilities. Of course, if these sellers you already have previous judgment or previous official decision to show that they are bad faith, they are out of bad faith, yes, you probably can ask the platform to start the procedures, which but you have to ask them for evidence, which evidence to upload. Most of the time, for instance, like they just resell your products 1 or 2 pieces, and then it will not be infringement and maybe you cannot take actions. However, in this case, it's always encouraged to ask the platforms first for clarifications. Okay, now we finish our quiz. Last thing will be
The Q&A.
yes. The last thing is the we have a slide.
Oh,
Yes, the last thing is we would love to know your opinions of today's training. And also congratulations, you all got the mostly got the right answer. And you already can take home with the most takeaway messages with you. And it will be much appreciated if you can scan another code to let us know your feedback. Maybe, for instance, like which parts you want me to cover in the future, or which contents you are more interested, or what kind of question you have. Yeah. So this is today's training of intellectual property right. Thank you, everyone, and I will give it back to Esther.
yes, thank you, Lisa. And as much as I would like to ask some questions myself to the participants, we have a lot of questions from our audience. So, and very little time to address it. So I would ask each of you to try and keep the answers short so that we can cover as many as possible. So the first question would be if any of you could please share with us which live streaming channel is the most effective from your experience. Maybe we can start with you, Jenny.
It's a very general question. I think it depends on the if you already depending on which channel you already have your store up. So focus on the live streaming on that channel. So if you have a Tmall store, do Tmall store live streaming. If it's Douyin store live streaming. Each platform is separated.
So you would recommend them just like looking at the platform overall rather than focusing on their live streaming channel?
Right. First decide on which channel you want to focus on.
Right. Thank you. We have a question for you, John. And that is, you mentioned red tape and basically like how long it takes for a company to register in an e-commerce platform. So what is it that companies should look out for in terms of red tape when undergoing this registration process, and maybe also when just like looking at operating in general?
I'm sorry.
Yes. So you mentioned yeah, the how long it takes to register and so on and so forth. So what is it that companies should look out for in terms of like red tape procedures that they would need to prepare for or watch out for when
Most of the from entering a registered store on marketplaces, the procedure, I'm sorry, procedure, and the requirement documents are actually it's written on the marketplace website, so you can look at it. So you can preparing from very beginning, so that could save quite a bit of time. But the reason I'm saying it's actually in certain cases it takes quite longer for some cases, because the definition of the business license, which we call here, but also this registration in Europe, could be different. So also could be also sometimes platform also asking for more specific information of the proof of residence, and more also can be, we also been experienced with from other people to ask for something like water bill, electricity bill to prove you are really working over there, you're really resident over there. So this is some specific cases you may face, but most of the information are already listed in those marketplace websites, so you can look into there, so you can prepare by following those guidelines, then can save a lot of time.
Thank you, John. Jenny, you showed in one of your first slides basically the estimated amount of investment that it would take for each e-commerce platform. Did you include in that estimated investments the costs for marketing and branding activities? Because afterwards, when we were talking about the different platforms, you were mentioning, for instance, in Xiaohongshu, what it would take really to take off, and so on and so forth, in terms of gifts and so on and so forth. So did you include that in that overall estimate?
Yes, there was a line. It says like how much percentage of revenue you should invest in marketing. And that part is to pay out as advertising or to influencers.
Right, and you mentioned that for some platforms that would be more expensive for you.
Yeah, for like Tmall and Douyin, it could go all the way to like even 50% for fashion brands. But if it's like a FMCG, food and beverage, it could be I don't know, maybe 20% to ish, depending on like how popular the brand is and how fast you want to expand within the Chinese market.
And so for when you mentioned that example of the gold
the gold
necklace and so on and so forth, that was one example of cutting costs in platforms like Red. Do you have any other examples or best practices as well, where trying to make that process less costly for small companies?
Gifting to influencers is already quite like cost effective, because you are actually not paying them the marketing fee. You are gifting them with a product, and assuming the cost of goods is relatively much lower compared to the marketing value that you would have to pay if you go through the official campaign. So usually, for example, if you are gifting out let's say $1 of product value, usually you can get maybe 10x marketing value back if doing via influencer seeding.
We have another question that is also a bit general, and I would ask both of you, John and Jenny, to answer that. And that is, are there any products that work better in different platforms? And maybe I would add then link to that. We haven't really talked much about the demographics of the users of the different platforms. So if you could maybe link that as well to the answer, that would be really interesting. So do you want to start, John?
Well, so I think this question can link to how the platform started. So Bubble Team started with as a general or generic e-commerce platform, so can fit in general most of the e-commerce most of the categories. And JD, because JD, they started to sell 3C products or computer accessories. So that is why, like Jenny said, so the digital products are more very accepted on JD, or more focused products are accepted in JD. But JD has also been trying very hard to become more comprehensive e-commerce platform. So they're trying hard, but in general, small items or fashion accessories or fashion items are selling less in general on JD. So for Red, because Red is Red or Xiaoshu, I believe over 90% of the users are female, so more lifestyle focused, more beauty focused items can fit Red better. Doing, because they were born as video sharing, so a small item or more smaller casual goods are being sold very well, like small snacks, small items, or wine or drink or wine glass. Like those items are being sold quite well on Douyin or those business platforms.
I agree with John, and one easy way to find out like which channel is for you is so the platform data is actually quite transparent. You can find out like how much each brand sells on each channel and how many organic mention you already have. So before making a decision, first you can just do a general search about, okay, how much is just do a search on your brand, like how many notes do you have, organic content you have on each social media and e-commerce channel, how many are the fake resellers are selling already on Tmall. You can have an estimate of sales volume, and this will give you an indication of which channel is right for you.
Okay. We have a question on AI, and I think that may go to you, Jenny. But the other speakers may also want to cover that, because the question is more about you have talked about ways of utilizing AI in your marketing activities and so on and so forth in e-commerce platforms, right? So beneficial ways of harnessing the potential of AI. But again, the question is more about what risks does it potentially entail for companies, and again, like they mentioned here, potential for fraud and so on and so forth. So are you looking at that in your work? And yeah, I don't know if that's good. Yeah.
So this question, so it's more like fraud advertisement. For instance, they use AI technology to put some materials like posters, which they claim this this product is from this company, but actually the sellers, they are not actually the real company. I will answer from this perspective. Yes, there exists risk, which is infringement mainly from of your copyrights, and depending on how the way they use AI technology to create what kind of materials. It could be copyright, it could be trademarks. So we still, from IP aspects, we encourage the IP owners to regularly monitor the online shops, especially now like this live streaming. It's really difficult to monitor to surveillance, but this is the only and the most efficient way to solve this problem and prevent this problem. And if you identify they use this AI to replace your products or make this fake advertisement, fake promotions, always notarized the infringing links first, and then you can consult us or you can consult your in-house on the next steps.
Thank you, Jenny. John.
For the using it for e-commerce purpose, AI is becoming kind of like a new tool. It's just like using Photoshop. So before we use Photoshop, and now it's just another way to create asset. And of course, it makes like design process, some of the photo shooting process a lot more faster. but it's just becomes more integrated into day-to-day, like as an agency, like into our day-to-day work. And I believe it also impacts the brands as well. We use it for content creation, image generation, data analysis, and everything. Of course, beyond that, there's inherent risk that comes with like AI, and I wouldn't speak about that because I don't, yeah, that's beyond today's topic.
All right. Last two questions, and those are actually for you, Lisa. First question is, why would a company register their IP through national channels, like when they can do it through international channels and have their IP protected in different jurisdictions? What are the considerations to take into account when choosing?
There are many reasons, but the most direct reasons related to the enforcement. You mentioned registration certificates is necessary in enforcement, and if you choose the international route, your certificates, like trademark certificates, will be in Spanish or French or English instead of Chinese. And if you show this foreign language to the platform or to, for instance, like the courts, they will not admit that. You still need to apply additional application to get the Chinese certificate. Yes, it's possible, but the time is longer. And the other reason is Chinese national registration system is so much shorter than the international one and so much cheaper. Yes, however, it really depends on how many countries or jurisdictions you want to get protections via the international routes. And you can try to calculate the fees and compare with this international registration or filing separately with different countries to see the price.
All right.
Oh, also I will add one more thing, because the international routes finally is actually exempt by the Chinese National Intellectual Property Administration. So either way you choose, it finally will go. The examination systems is still the same. So yeah, it's just time different and cost different.
All right. Yeah. I think that the last question you kind of answered further on in your presentations, that what to consider when deciding which enforcement options you have for a case, aside from cost. Yeah, I think that you already.
Yeah, I can add a little bit more comments. So that really depends, because each options has pros and cons. You have to consult like a lawyer or. Yes, this really depends. I cannot give you the only one answer that this situation you only go for this, and that situation you only go for that. And it's like various options you can choose.
Okay. All right, with that, I think that we have just reached our time, just 2 minutes over time. Thank you everybody for joining today's meeting, and thank you in particular to our great speakers, Jenny, John, and Lisa. We will send out the slides after this meeting, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via email. All right, thank you very much everybody, and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.